Of October 17th, an FLQ communique leads police to a car parked near Saint-Hubert Airport.
The 13-day drama that Canadians have been living is over. The Minister of Labor and Immigration of the province of Quebec, Pierre Laporte, was found dead tonight in the trunk of a car found near Saint-Hubert Airport.
It is the first assassination of a Canadian politician since the murder of Thomas D'Arcy McGee 102 years earlier. Lise Balset did not take part in the kidnappings. She is in the lower St. Lawrence region when she and a group of FLQ sympathizers are arrested.
The radio was on, and somewhere between Matane and Quebec City, I heard the bulletin that they had found Pierre Laporte's body. I felt bad and, at the same time, a bit weird. At that time, we were revolutionaries, so for me, Laporte's death was an execution, not a murder.
Tuesday, October 20th, is one of the darkest days in Montreal's long history. In less than 3 weeks, a whole political culture has changed. Until then, politicians in Canada went about with no protection. Now they become less accessible. There will be a greater distance between the elected and the governed. Pierre Laporte's killers are arrested a few months later. The police will find and free James Cross after 60 days of captivity. It is the end of the FLQ. Pauline Julien and Gérald Gaudin are detained for 8 days, then released without charge. It will be the same for more than 440 others. Pierre Trudeau and Robert Bourassa will express no regret for having invoked the War Measures Act, but later they will concede that there were excesses. In the early 1970s, many women are angry. They will no longer be patronized or put off.
I have the same brain capacity as you have. Just because I have to, by nature, have the child, doesn't mean that that makes me a good person to be in the home with that child. I will not stay in the home just because a man says that I should.
Indian woman has been the workhorse, the doormat, and the baby machine.
A royal commission on the status of women channels that anger. Journalist Doris Anderson notes the commission is a wake-up call for a lot of people.
People thought it was ridiculous. A royal commission on women? What's the matter? Women are fine. The papers reported on it as a joke, but people quickly began to realize that this wasn't a joke at all.
Women of Canada answer with fire, the blood of their sisters.
Thousands of women become activists. The decriminalization of abortion soon becomes one of their main issues.
We will go ahead from here and we will speak for the women of Canada, and we will do further actions until each woman has her right to control her own life.
Therapeutic abortions are legal, but very few are performed. A woman has to make her case to a board of doctors, and the doctors are the ones who decide. Pressure to change this is growing. Marcy Cohen is a student at Simon Fraser University in British Columbia.
Women still had to go to a psychiatrist and say, "I'm psychologically unstable, and so you have to give me an abortion."
A Montreal doctor, Henry Morgenthaler, publicly calls for abortion on demand.
We believe that any woman should have the right to ask for a termination of pregnancy within the first 3 months of pregnancy.
he openly begins to practice illegal abortions at his clinic in East End, Montreal. There, he develops a safe abortion procedure.
Vancouver Women's Caucus is leaving today on this abortion cavalcade and is joining with women all across Canada in a nationwide struggle.
In the spring of 1970, Marcy Cohen and a group of women set off for Ottawa to demand the right to abortion on demand.
We were 14, 15 women. There was a yellow Pontiac convertible, a Volkswagen bus with a coffin strapped to the top.
Their trek receives nationwide media coverage, and they gather support everywhere they go.
It was incredible. Across the country, waitresses in restaurants, for instance, would open up to us and tell us stories about what they've gone through. We picked up some women along the way from Saskatoon and Winnipeg. Some women came from Toronto and Montreal. So we had 500 to 1,000 women with us in Ottawa.
They have asked for a meeting with Prime Minister Trudeau, but have received no reply. So they decide to show up at his residence.
We all started a spontaneous march on Sussex Drive. There were 4 policemen there, but no big fences or anything. We rang the doorbell. We put the coffin down in front of his door.
Nothing happens. 3 years later, Henry Morgentaler directly challenges the government, the police, and the courts.
From 1968, I have performed 5,000 abortions in my clinic in Montreal in defiance of the abortion law, which I consider to be unjust, unfair, restrictive.
That galvanizes the large movement of people against abortions.
We're here for many days, and we're going to stay here as long as we can to try and reduce the number of abortions, to try and put Dr. Morgentaler out of business, and if possible, to have him in jail.
The authorities decide to act. Morgentaler is arrested.
Je suis prêt à laisser ma peau même pour cette lutte, parce que je trouve que c'est une lutte pour la justice, pour la dignité des femmes, pour la protection de la santé des femmes.
The Morgentaler case will drag on for 10 years. Even though he testifies he performed abortions, juries will acquit him 3 times. In the next years, women will broaden their fight to include paid maternity leave, daycare, and salaries equal to those of male colleagues. In the early 70s, many Canadians are living in a dream world. The great economic post-war boom is over, but no one seems to notice. Canadians are comfortable with their illusions. It's the series of the century. In 1972, Canada's best faced the best of the Soviet Union. It's supposed to be a piece of cake for the Canadians, but the Soviets hang on almost to a bitter end, and then...
Henderson made a wild stab for spell. Here's another shot right by the score!
For a long while, Canadians will still believe they have the best hockey players in the world.
I mean, God was on our side, let's face it.
Everyone seems to believe that prosperity has no end and the public purse no bottom. In Quebec, this leads to the largest strike in Canada's history. More than 200,000 government employees, including hospital workers, strike. They want everyone to share the wealth. Louisette Laforêt is a nurse in a hospital near Montreal.
We were asking for $100 a week basic salary for all union workers. We nurses were making more than that a week, but we wanted justice for the others.
The government is running a deficit. It legislates an end to the strike.
There was a lot of tension. We had no strike fund. I was a single parent. But despite the tension and the insecurity, I never thought for a moment that we should end the strike.
Three union leaders urge strikers to ignore the law. It's an open challenge to Premier Robert Bourassa.
Tant que je serai chef de gouvernement, il n'y aura personne au-dessus de la loi. Et ce ne sont pas les menaces qui me sont faites actuellement par les trois chefs syndicaux qui vont ébranler ma détermination et ma fermeté et mon acharnement même à faire respecter la loi.
The government breaks the strike. The three union leaders are sentenced to a year in jail. Workers like Louisette Laforêt find the showdown only whets their appetite.
The Common Front shook the government. I came out of it more dedicated than ever to the union movement.
It's an event half a world away that drives reality home. In 1973, the Middle East is at war. Arab countries use oil as a weapon against countries supporting Israel. Oil prices quadruple. The economic fallout is immediate and devastating. Inflation reaches 11%. Unemployment skyrockets. The auto industry is especially vulnerable. Hubert Butler is still working at the Ford plant in Windsor. Butler is convinced he's going to be laid off.
A lot of people were losing their jobs. I was on the afternoon shift, and I was supposed to be done at 11:30. And then they came to me and canceled the layoff. That's how your life can change.
Governments are deeply mired in debt. In 1975, Pierre Trudeau resorts to a policy he was ridiculing only a year earlier. Wages and prices are frozen.
This program of restraint is the heaviest imposed upon Canadians since the Second World War.
Canadians are furious.
I'm asking you how much you're going to do without. How much will your kids do without?
Hope they don't do without anything.
Okay, how about the rest of us? How about the working people here? Why should we do without?
But not everybody is hurting. Alberta has oil, lots of oil. Many there are making huge fortunes. Bob Braun is president of Turbo Resources of Calgary, which owns a chain of service stations.
In Turbo, we felt that anything was possible unless there was a rule against it. We just wanted to build a big company. And we started in Calgary and Edmonton, and we expanded across the prairies and into Ontario.
In the East, resentment grows. Some start referring to Albertans and their Premier Peter Lougheed as blue-eyed Arabs. While Alberta prospers, eastern provinces have to pay world prices for imported oil. Ottawa asks Western oil companies to voluntarily freeze their prices. And it imposes a tax on Western oil exports to the United States.
We intend to fight back. We have no other choice.
Albertans feel that Ottawa wants to stop them from selling their oil at a fair price and force them to send it east.
It's our resource, so we should get the say in who we sell it to and for what.
Westerners like Bob Braun turn not only against Trudeau, but against the federal government.
His vision of a strong central government is not how this country was founded. It's not the basis on which we exist. Certainly in Western Canada.
Alberta and the Trudeau government begin a tug-of-war that will last 10 years. It will deepen the split between East and West. In 1973, René Lévesque has had enough. He is leaving politics.
I have done my bit. It's time to hang up my skates. I feel like earning a decent living like everyone else. There must be others who can take my place.
In the recent election, his Parti Québécois lost ground to the Liberals, and once again, Lévesque failed to get elected. Louisette Laforêt, an early member of the PQ, is devastated.
I cried. I was so disappointed. It was very painful. After what Bourassa had done to the unions, I was hoping things would change.
Lévesque's departure would be catastrophic. His supporters search for something that will convince him to change his mind. Claude Morin is a backroom advisor who has wielded power in Quebec for years. He thinks he has the answer. He proposes a new strategy. Get elected first, then hold a referendum on independence. He calls it étapisme, one step at a time.
Le mot étapisme est un mot qui a été inventé pour décrire tout simplement le fait qu'on ne peut pas faire la souveraineté du Québec du jour au lendemain. Ça, c'est normal. Tout le monde comprend ça.
Lévesque buys the idea and decides to stay. In the next election, a vote for the Parti Québécois will not be a vote for Quebec's independence. Then the PQ gets lucky. Robert Bourassa's Liberal government goes off the rails. First, it stumbles over the thorny language issue. It makes French the official language of Quebec and requires that French appear on commercial signs. It limits access to English schools to children who already speak English. The law pleases no one. Publisher Nick Chiamara is a Liberal supporter.
It was a good law, but many non-Francophones felt cheated. They felt they were losing the right to send their children to the school of their choice.
Quebec nationalists like Louisette Laforêt feel Bourassa hasn't done enough.
It did nothing to protect the French language. To me, it was a betrayal by the Liberal government, and most of all, by Robert Bourassa.
Nous sommes d'une race qui refuse de mourir. Alors, ensemble, nous allons lutter. Notre lutte ne fait que commencer.
Then there are long and violent strikes. In Montreal, a firefighters' strike will be remembered as the Red Weekend. The government is splattered by scandals connected with the construction of the Olympic installations. But a decision in Ottawa will give the Parti Québécois its biggest boost. Ottawa wants to make air traffic control at 5 Quebec airports bilingual. English-speaking pilots and air traffic controllers won't have it.
It's unsafe, and everyone's proven that. I can't understand what the problem is.
But French-speaking pilots and controllers see it as overdue.
It's being done in all countries of the world, and I think one of the good examples is the Paris area, where 60% of the traffic is in French and 40% in English.
The federal government retreats from the idea of bilingual airports. Transport Minister Jean Marchand has been the driving force behind the policy. Disillusioned, he quits cabinet.
I think that this very serious problem of national unity is not going to be solved in Alberta. It's going to be solved in Quebec.
Gérard Pelletier has already left government. Of the three wise men, only Trudeau remains. In the fall of 1976, Robert Bourassa calls a snap election. Lévesque plays on built-up frustration and resentment against the government.
Our decision desk is calling a majority government for the Parti Québécois.
J'ai jamais pensé que je pouvais être aussi fier d'être Québécois que ce soir.
Louisette Laforêt is one of thousands at the Paul Sauvé Arena that night.
It was a great moment, an unforgettable moment. It was so real. You could have cut through the emotions with a knife. We finally had the feeling that Quebec would become independent, that it was finally possible.
I am confident that Quebecers will continue to reject separatism because they still believe that their destiny is linked with an indivisible Canada.
The struggle for the hearts, minds, and loyalties of Quebecers has begun. Twice in the decades to come, the survival of Canada will be put to the test.